Hey, good morning. Good morning, colleagues. I'm just looking where the camera is. It's over there. Good morning, first of all, to those that are attending physically here in New York. A nice and sunny day here. I just arrived myself yesterday evening. I landed at 7 p.m. So I'm still a bit jet lagged, but I'm very happy that with the help of the fantastic team of the EU delegation here in New York, we managed to have this event on putting a bit more emphasis on economic, social, and cultural rights, of course, and on the topic of education. I'll start with some welcoming remarks. I'll try not to be too long, and then I will introduce the keynote speakers that are here with me virtually, but also physically. And then I understand that we need to be quite strict with the time management, which I will do, and some will need to leave quite early also, as of 9 a.m. Once again, on behalf of the European Union, a very warm welcome here to this side event, as I said, on education and digital transformation, where we will look at the challenges and the opportunities we have in front of us. I'm here today together with fellow champions of education transformation, with the Honorable Minister of Education from Sierra Leone. And I'm also happy to moderate this event with an impressive list of speakers. First, maybe I can introduce them already now. UN Special Rapporteur on the right to education, Mrs. Farida Shahid. Then we have the newly elected Deputy Secretary General of the ITU, of the International Telecommunication Union, and I'm very happy to also to have him here with us. A couple of more colleagues, whom I would like to shortly to present. From UNESCO, Director at Policy and Lifelong Learning Systems, Mr. Boyan Chakron, Mr. Peter Micek, the General Counsel and UN Advocacy Manager of Access Now, and then and also welcome Mrs. Frances Camara, Director of School Quality Assurance, Management and Resources, a long title, at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education of Sierra Leone. Before proceeding with the speakers, let me stress that the promotion and the protection of the so-called ESC rights, the economic, social, and cultural rights, is a shared priority of all of us. The European Union has been quite engaged in this issue. But we think that we can do more, as always, more in this field, and that's why we are also hosting this event today. You know that next year we will have 75 years of UDHR, so that's why it's important to mention one article of the UDHR relevant to us, namely Article 26, on where the right to education features prominently, of course. Access to quality education is key for the personal, but also for the professional development of young people. And quality education at the same time at the heart of any societal development. Quality education is a precondition to build a peaceful, prosperous, and a society where human rights are being respected. Everyone and everywhere, and for everyone, and not just so really worldwide, and not just in a couple of countries. For us, it's important to equip young people to tackle today's most demanding challenges, which are threats to peace and democracy, growing inequalities, but also gender inequalities, and of course also climate change. We face a global education crisis currently, unfortunately, and that is deepening also with a worrying speed. This, of course, was driven by the recent COVID-19 pandemic, which unfortunately has not stopped yet, and of course the global crisis when it comes to food, to energy, and to finance that are due to the Russian aggression against Ukraine. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation of education. This is maybe the positive side of the thing, allowing millions of children and youth to keep accessing education during lockdowns. At the same time, it has also exacerbated inequalities, and of course, the global digital divide becomes bigger and bigger. Much research has been done both by UNICEF, but also by the ITU, which has shown that in high-income countries, 87% of children and young people have an internet connection at home, whereas in low-income countries, only 6% can access the internet. Therefore, investing in education means for us investing in digitalization. The digital divide in education has also a disproportionate impact on those that are in the most disadvantaged situations, and of course negatively affected also gender equality. Far less access to the internet and to mobile technology, of course, then the boys have girls that have been disadvantaged to access remote learning. We know that free, equitable and inclusive quality education is key to realize the SDGs. Yet we think that we still have a long way to go in order to achieve goal 4 of the SDGs by 2030. The EU is firmly committed to further promote, protect and defend economic, social and cultural rights, including the right to education, and this through our digital diplomacy. Just to remind you that we have digital diplomacy conclusions. This is a bit maybe bureaucratic, but this is a document that our ministers adopted in July of this year. We have the EU Digital Education Action Plan, which is very concrete, and of course the recent Youth Action Plan that was adopted earlier this month on the 4th of October, and that bodes well with the endeavors by the UN. Last but not least, I'd like to mention the EU's Global Gateway strategy that further strengthens our investments by mobilizing much needed additional resources for enabling environments for teaching, for training, but also for learning at all levels. An important part of it is, of course, how to secure digital connectivity between Europe and Africa, and also to reinforce interconnections within Africa. Transforming Education Summit, all of you who are based in New York know that much better than I do. That was an important event here at the margins of the of UNGA 77 of the High Level Week. And of course, we are also honored to be announced global champions of transformative education by Deputy Secretary General of the UN, Amina Mohammed, together with 4 other champions. I think this is it. I could continue for quite some time, but I think in the interest of time, we will now proceed to the keynote remarks. And first, I'm very happy to give the floor to Ms. Farida Shahid, the UN Special Rapporteur on Education, who started only in August. So I think this is a big privilege to have you with us, and her intervention will be followed by the one of the Deputy SG, Thomas Lamanowskas, who will be with us virtually from Geneva. Please.
Thank you. So first of all, a great thanks to the European Union for giving me this opportunity to maybe just highlight a few key points on this critical topic. Of course, it's absolutely essential that we seize the opportunities that are presented by digital technology in the realm of education, but equally to address the challenges that are posed. And so digitalization can support the right to education. It can improve access and continuity, enhance quality, support collaborative projects, and create lifelong learning opportunities for everyone. It can provide access to books and information for children and all learners in unprecedented ways. But there are many challenges, as we've just heard. So the biggest human rights challenge is to ensure equality and inclusiveness, and to ensure that we do not exacerbate the inequalities that already exist in this realm. So we've heard some of the divides, but let me also point out that the digital gender gap has not changed since 2011. So you have men are still 21% more likely to be online than women globally, and 52% in the least developed countries. And of equal concern, of course, are the exclusions that are due to ethnicity, to race, religion, social class, rural versus urban settings, and disabilities, etc. And I could go on. So in all, it's vital, I think, to bear in mind my predecessor's report and recommendations on how digitalizing education impacts the right to education. And like her, I kind of worry about the view that digital technology will solve all educational problems and has only positive outcomes. So technology is a tool, it's not a panacea, and positive changes are not guaranteed. They will depend very much on the context and policies that within which this is introduced. And unless these policies promote the right to education for all, digital technologies in education are likely to reinforce the advantages for the already privileged and have the opposite desire of outcomes, which is reinforce exclusion instead of improving access, promote standardized, not personalized teaching, fortify stereotypes instead of respect for diversity, reduce autonomy and freedom instead of promoting creativity and participation, and enable data exploitation benefiting a few at the expense of public interest. Digitalization, I want to emphasize, must not become a cheap way to deliver education, which only provides skills needed to function professionally with little creative expression and participation. The goal must be digital agency as a global good. Education must equip learners with digital skills needed to be active citizens and participate fully and freely on all aspects of human life. The digital world is far from inclusive. Poor connectivity and power sources and the cost of devices undermine access. Certain languages dominate to the detriment of others. Most are excluded. So if we look at India, which has 786 languages spoken, you have 30, almost 30 officially recognized, not hardly anything on the net. So we're looking at scripts, we're looking at languages, and we also must ask who actually populates the digital world, whose point of view is being there, and the languages. Two quick points regarding data, which are of deep concern. First, data generated by digital technologies in education about students and teachers is growing dramatically. Data is often proprietary and not open to oversight and reuse by educators, hence often not used or useful for schools. The massive imbalance in power, awareness, and knowledge between those who decide on the technologies and the users is at odds with the human rights principles of freedom, equality, autonomy, and participation. Second, data collection in use is not transparent and can be totally opaque and disrespectful of the right to privacy and meaningful consent. A Human Rights Watch study of education technologies for children during the pandemic, which is endorsed by 49 of the most populous countries, notes that most put at risk or directly violated children's privacy and other rights. Children were secretly monitored and data harvested on who they were, where they were, what their family and friends were, what kind of devices the parents could afford. And they were also followed outside the classroom. So the platforms and the programs tracked them across the internet and over time, and much of that data was all sold or given to advertising companies. And children and young people must not indirectly pay the price for seemingly free of cost services. States must have data protection laws that safeguard the child's best interest in all digital settings. Educational institutions, including when online, must remain safe spaces for people to develop and exercise critical thinking and to access information unbiased by commercial interests. The profit-driven interests of lobbyists and digital companies do not coincide with those of teachers and learners. Not all claimed benefits are substantiated or even real. These must be critically assessed. It's vital to take time to reflect and ensure that all relevant stakeholders participate in the decision-making about the introduction and use of digital technology. A major challenge, of course, is balancing investments in technologies and the human factor. Teachers meaning teachers and in-person schooling. Digitalizing education must be accompanied by robust investments in the human factors, especially teachers, who are the key to realizing the right to education. Questions to ask include: what exactly is more expensive, including in the long term? Who bears the cost of digital technologies in education, including data mining? And whether options simply use machines for education or enable a truly digital education for digitally savvy citizens. COVID has also revealed the limits of digital education compared to face-to-face education in institutions that enable interaction and offer various other social services. Harnessing the potential of digital education to enhance the right to education is crucial, of course, but cannot ever replace face-to-face education. Digitalization must be thought through, learner-centered, age-appropriate, and improve accessibility, acceptability, and adaptability for all. In the end, I also recommend investments in free public digital platforms and infrastructure for education, developing open data tools, platforms, and services, and the production and use of open source content. So thank you.
Thank you very much to the Special Rapporteur on the right to education. And now I will give the floor to Thomas Lamanauskas, ITU Deputy Secretary General-elect, who is joining us from Lithuania.
So thank you very much, Deputy Managing Director, and great to hear this great overview from the Special Rapporteur, and really, great to be with you there. This time only virtually. It was a pleasure to be just a month ago as a part of Transforming Education Summit in person in New York and be part of those discussions. Of course, as a candidate at the time, I was observing those discussions, but we probably will be delighted to hear that both the current Secretary General, Colin Jao, and now Secretary General-elect, Doreen Bogdan-Martin, were there in force, both representing ITU and expressing our commitment to this agenda. Also, it was great to hear that Special Rapporteur, when he started her tenure in August, it was great to collaborate. Of course, to note here, I'm here a bit of advance my time, so I'm starting my tenure from 1st of January, but thank you very much for already inviting me here to share some of my thoughts. I'm looking forward to work with everyone in the future. So first of all, as the Transforming Education Summit has posed in when issuing the call of digital education for all, there are three keys to ensuring education and digital education for all: content, capacity, and connectivity. And of course, we have around the table here experts who can very comprehensively cover all those aspects. And from my two aspects, we always offer our advice on different aspects of those as well. However, of course, I have to be admit and humbly admit that we're mainly experts of connectivity. And I think for us, from our perspective, I would like to mainly focus on the aspects of that, how we ensure connectivity for all. And why it is important. And Deputy Managing Director mentioned how during COVID, we saw a transformation of education and really push for digital education for all, with a lot of countries coping well. But we shouldn't forget that around 1/3 of school children didn't have access to digital education, and that meant they didn't have access to education, with estimated $17 trillion impact of their lifetime earnings. So it's very tangible there. But it's not just a let's say COVID phenomenon. If we see the school mapping that GIGA project, which I'll mention more in a bit, has done, on over 40% of schools are not connected to the internet, and we still have that problem fundamentally. And again, Deputy Managing Director mentioned the divide of the children connectivity around the world. So it's also, that's why it's not an accident that Secretary General Antonio Guterres' Our Common Agenda puts not only general connecting everyone, but specifically connecting schools as a key objective. So what can be done? So one answer to what can be done is ITU's GIGA project, which is a joint initiative by ITU and UNICEF, which so far have mapped 1.1 million of schools connectivity out of estimated 6 million of schools in all of 50 countries. Also, we already are proud that together with partners, GIGA project has connected more than 5,500 schools and estimated 2.1 million school children in 19 countries. So we have an effort. We're moving along and moving forward, but we need everyone to work together with us to achieve those ambitious goals to connect every school. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General Antonio Guterres mentioned, in his remarks in different occasions that education, digital technologies could be a great equalizer. But at the same token, it could be a great divider. And again, Deputy Managing Director mentioned that, that we have seen, issues and widening digital divide in a way. And with the changes in how education is delivered, the changes how the services delivered, actually, let's say, costs of not being connected are rising, and what's at stake is rising. So we need to be doing more to ensure that everyone has those opportunities. And it's not only about absolute numbers, but already we mentioned, and Special Rapporteur mentioned, and Deputy Managing Director mentioned gender divide. And I have to be even more disappointing than Special Rapporteur. It's actually, the problem is not that gender divide is stagnating. Actually, last year saw it again creeping back up at least by 1 percentage point by the GSMA statistics. So we need to make sure that we don't allow it to creep back up, but actually deal with that. And ITU has, with a lot of partners, initiatives as the Equals Global Partnership, try to work on those. And again, we invite everyone to join us on that. Persons with disabilities and special needs is another area where definitely digital tools and digital education both has really a lot of potential to address those needs, at the same time risks the divide. And we have, around the world, we estimate around 1 billion of people with persons living with various disabilities, and 80% of them in developing countries. ITU over the years has worked a lot in different ways. We have issued toolkits on accessibility. We have a strong work on standards in that regard, as well as over the last 2 years, we had regional so-called accessible events to raise the awareness of the topics. And again, we hope that we can work together with you on those going forward. But also, we need to remember the risks. And there was a little bit mentioned here by Special Rapporteur about the risks that digital education can bring. And my personal experience working in the countries like Vanuatu and seeing connectivity coming first time in remote islands, you see, I call it the issue of first-time connected people, or first-time online people. And I think we need to make sure that, we manage those risks and manage those aspects to ensure that exposure to information is a positive one, at least positive outweighs the negative risks. And we ensure that we also acknowledge those risks of being connected, acknowledge the different types of information and other risks that people can face online. Again, in ITU since already 2009, and I was very glad in my past career in ITU actually spearheading some of those efforts as multi-stakeholder work on a child life protection, or we call COP work. Over the most recent, let's say, edition of the COP guidelines issued in 2020. Gives guidance both also to children, but also parents and educators, as well as policymakers, and actually helps again, ensure that both policymakers and other audiences have tools to manage those risks. And ITU, together with other stakeholders as well, welcomed the so-called General Comment 25 to Convention on Rights of Children that actually specifically talks and raises the broader agenda the issues of digital risks in the online world. So again, while we connect, while we manage the gaps, we need to also remember there are other risks we need to manage together. So, ladies and gentlemen, ITU stands ready to work with everyone to make sure that digital education is actually for all, but also that we manage issues as we go along. One of the recent major conference, Multilingual Education Development Conference, specifically issued resolution on connecting every school to the internet and bringing ICT services to every young person. That is a strong statement from our membership. Our Partner to Connect Summit, which was also earlier convened earlier this year, saw at least $12 billion pledges specifically geared towards enhancing digital education and and skill development and capacity. We do this work, but I think it's always very important that we do this work together with all of you. We'll put the things we have on the table, and we'll hope to collaborate with you to bring digital education to all. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for these very inspiring words to both of the speakers. We move now on to the second part, and namely, I have three speakers here that will come in with some with short statements. First, I already welcomed the Director of School Quality Assurance Management and Resources from Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone was one of the champions of TES, of course, Mrs. Frances Camara. The second speaker will be UNESCO's Director at Policy and Lifelong Learning Systems, Mr. Bohen Chakroun, and then we will have Mr. Peter Micek, General Counsel and UN Advocacy Manager of Access Now. And with that, I give the floor to our first speaker, to Mrs. Frances Camara. Please, you have the floor. Oh, okay, she's disconnected. So maybe then I would say, yeah, we move to the second one, who hopefully is connected from UNESCO. Ah, yeah, I see. Very good. So it's a Director at Policy and Lifelong Learning Systems, Mr. Bohen Chakroun. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor, and good morning, good afternoon to all colleagues who are joining this very important session, and thanks to the European Union for organizing this debate. Thanks also to the Special Rapporteur, Madame Farida Shaili, I hope to meet her very soon. Just, I think I have to build on what was just said. First of all, I think there is a fundamental question is, why do we consider that the digital transformation can affect the right to education? And that's what we have seen during the COVID, but also beyond the COVID, is that the issue of availability, the issues of accessibility, issues of adaptability, or the issues of acceptabilities are threatened when we discuss the digital transformation. One is, we mentioned the connectivity. Second, we mentioned also, and there were a few references regarding to the data protection and security. But there are other aspects. For example, the resources that are available, they are not available necessarily in mother tongue. It's about the contextualization of the education resources. It's about the capacities of the teachers to teach and to use the digital technology. So it's very important that we look at, and that's what you are doing today, is to insist on how we take the right based perspective in this discussion. The second point from my side is during the Transforming Education Summit, we referred to the three keys that Mr. Thomas was mentioning earlier. That is the connectivity and how we ensure that we are investing in connectivity. That's the capacities, and that's about capacities of the learners in terms of digital skills and digital literacy, capacity of the school leaders and the teachers, but also capacity of the decision makers to be able to leverage the potential. And the third is about education resources and making and having a quality education resources that are accessible, open education resources that are accessible, and that are where the investment are taking place. Maybe I would like to add two aspects that are important in addition to the three keys. One is about the management information systems and all the investment that are related to data, and the data, and this was mentioned. It's not only about protecting and securing, which is very critical. It's also about having the capacities and having a robust information system that can support education decision, that can support the teaching and learning, and that and address the learning crisis that we are living. And the last key, I believe, is about investment. If there is no investment in digital transformation as part of the education transformation, as you mentioned, Chair, then we will miss the boat, and we will have a further digital gaps across and within countries. So the investment, and it's not only about investment of companies or international community, it's about domestic investment. Because if you don't invest in current and budget, then every investment you make might be threatened. So these are important aspects that we have to take. Now, what should we do and what we need to do in terms of initiatives? One is, of course, how we embed the digital transformation in education policy plans and sector plans. That's part of the action that UNESCO is doing together with other partners, and that's what the Global Partnership for Education is also supporting. So it's important that the digital transformation is part of the education policy, is not an add-on, is not something that is taking elsewhere. The second, invest heavily in teachers' capacities. Schools are there and will be there. That's what our future report is mentioning. But schools have to evolve. Learning spaces have to evolve. But it's important that we invest in the capacities of teachers in this case. And the last where we have to invest is the digital skills or the literacy skills, be it for learning, but also for access to the labor market. Today, skills are required in the labor market. Digital skills are required in the labor market for youth employment and for employability and for adult learning. And this is very important that we keep in mind. What UNESCO is doing, first of all, we have been investing in the recommendation on ethics and artificial intelligence, which doesn't look specifically on education, but is part of it. I think that the work we have been doing and the initiative we launched during the Transforming Education Summit on gateway to education resources and open education resources is an initiative that is very important. And last and not least, we need to take the digital transformation as double-edged sword. One is digital transformation can address the access to education and the right to education. And that's what we need to leverage. That's what we need to shape and be proactive on it. And the second, we need to minimize the risks of digital transformation in terms of security, data protection, but also in terms of the digital divide. And here, and it's very important because the meeting is with UN, and UN, the multilateral dimension of it is very important. Today, the data flow is international. Today, the digital transformation is not only nationally based, it involves the cross-national dimension, and the data ID or IDs in data is also cross borders. So it's very important that we take the discussion at international level, that the normative instrument, be it human right instrument or the right to education, have to evolve, and that's what we are doing as part of an important initiative. We are calling it the evolving right to education, to place right to education within a lifelong learning perspective and cover aspect, including aspect related to digital transformation, but not only. Thank you very much for the invitation, and we stand ready to engage with all member states and with the European Union, of course, in this case. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Director. I see now that Ms. Kamara is connected, and I would like to give her the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome.
I'm Ms. Kamara from Sierra Leone, representing the Honorable Minister of Education for basic and senior secondary. So I want to share with you what is happening now in Sierra Leone as far as digital transformation for education is concerned. There is undeniably no doubt that digital technology is key in transforming education. Whilst there are concerns about the security, privacy, and widening inequality driven by rapid advances in technology, our ministry believes in using digital technology in transforming education will significantly enhance the learning outcomes. Now, as a ministry, we have been able to make effective data-driven decisions because our data collection process for our annual school census is digitalized, and we have been able to better connect with our constituents. Every year, we collect data on the schools, the number of teachers, and this is what we use as a tool and as a country. During the outbreak of the pandemic, that is the COVID-19, We were able as a ministry to use digital technology to deliver teaching through radio programs, especially for those schools. You know, schools were closed for about several months and the kids were at home, so we wanted to engage them in learning. So we didn't want that break to happen. So the radio discussion was on to several of our children during the school closure. However, when looking at the indices for equity or equal access to digital technology, many countries like ours, Sierra Leone, will achieve only small scores or low scores. The use of internet can be seen as one typical indicator in the use of digital technology. To close the gap and ensure our children are availed of the opportunities, because we're talking about opportunities and risks, which creates the option for them to think as early as possible about what is best for them and for their future goals. There is significant need for investments in this direction. Government has allocated 22% of the country's budget to education. Our education sector is divided into two, but we work as a sector. We have the basic education sector, and then we have the higher education sector. So a lot is given as a priority to education. We need to invest in the lives of these kids. We also like to call on developed economies, countries to increase investment so as to enable poor countries to make available these technologies to those in the remotest areas, as we firmly believe in radical inclusion. For Sierra Leone, we have a policy of radical inclusion that is saying that every child should be given the opportunity and chance to go to school, regardless of their status, whether it's political, economic, or race. So somebody spoke about special needs. These are all included in our radical inclusion policy. The risks, even though we rely on digital technology in transforming our education system, and the internet has been a learning platform, general learning platform for all, especially for children also. There is also the risk of it being used by several people for cyberbullying, invasion of privacy, identity theft, and our children see offensive images and messages. This takes me to the point where we need the parents also to censor the kind of films, the kind of movies, the kind of things the children watch, whether it's through TV or their phones they use every day. Some children have been mentally tortured, seeing cruelty done to animals, or children are exposed to pornographic movies. And all of these are risks to the use of digital technology. In Sierra Leone, as we speak, we have created the opportunities for teachers. And I'm glad that somebody spoke about the teachers, why we should invest in our teachers. A lot of training has been done by Lewy Land that works with it was initially DFID, but now FCDU. A lot of training has been done for the teachers and also school leaders, because in collecting data, you need to have the basic skills, and then to help the ministry also to collect basic data, even though we have our annual school census that we conduct every year. This is to leverage on technology to achieve new levels of productivity, especially for the teachers, and then implement useful tools to expand their learning for our children. With this kind of skills achieved or acquired by the teachers, they will be able to easily do their teaching exercises when it comes to technology. They will not be ignorant of the world, that technology is all over the place and it has come to stay. We have also introduced the learning passports. We have introduced the dictionary in hand application and the knowledge platform for teachers and pupils to be able to access vital learning materials vital learning information that will enhance their learning outcomes, especially for the kids that go to school. This is a laudable venture which can be effectively used when we have effective power system. Our risk is power, connectivity. The project Giga also has come to Sierra Leone, but we are yet in the pilot stage. We want to pilot Project Giga in 60 schools and then expand it to several schools. But then what we have experienced is the connectivity. Power is a very big challenge. Considering the fact that we are gradually making inroads in using technology in transforming education, it is worth emphasizing that everyone must be mindful of the risk that has already outlined above, and we should put hands together to mitigate these risks. For us in Sierra Leone, we work as a team. I've spoken about the teachers. Their welfare is being handled by the Teaching Service Commission, but then the Teaching Service Commission works with the Ministry of Education and supported by the Ministry of Education. And then even though the ministry has been divided into two, but then we work with the higher education, ministry for us to synergize whatever is happening in the schools with those TTIs, the teacher training colleges and universities that have been handled by the higher education ministry. So this is the case in Sierra Leone, and I've highlighted the risk that we face, but then there is more to do when it comes to digital technology and digital education for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was particularly interesting, I think, for all of us to listen to the special example of Sierra Leone, and thanks for having shared that with us. Now the next speaker is Peter Micek, General Counsel and UN Advocacy Manager from Access Now, also connected virtually. Peter, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm really honored to join this session and this distinguished panel. So Access Now is a global organization that works at the intersection of human rights and technology. We advance universal connectivity with particular attention to the quality of those connections. We want them to be meaningful, as the ITU has really embraced. And for us, that means that this connectivity is respectful of human rights and takes into account the impacts on those most vulnerable or marginalized among us. So Access Now has been trying to advance these goals through, firstly, a campaign against disruptions of connectivity. So we unfortunately track increasing internet shutdowns, what we term these intentional disruptions of connectivity around the world. And after dropping a bit during COVID, they picked up again in 2021 with the most internet shutdowns, or rather the most countries in the world shutting down the internet than any previous year. And so 34 countries shut down the internet in 2021, which spells a really bad trend because often these states will return to this tactic. And I'm raising this in the context of this panel on the right to education for a few reasons, but mainly because the internet is increasingly significant to achieving Sustainable Development Goal for on quality education. Reaching this goal, according to Goal 17, will require the use of new and emerging technologies. As a special rapporteur and has stated, and as a 2014 UN Human Rights Council resolution noted, the existence of the internet builds both agency and inclusion in education, and this particularly benefits women and girls. The internet provides an opportunity for these students to have the same access to information as other students across the world. Of course, recognizing that that language and the meaningful content that they're able to find matters, that they have literacy, and that they have stable electricity and access to devices. But that is recognized in this 2014 UN Human Rights Council resolution that declares the internet facilitates vast opportunities for affordable and inclusive education globally. We are excited to see courts starting to take up the right to education in a digital context. A court in India referred to this Human Rights Council resolution in supporting the claims of women students who are living in a residential college to access the internet at night. The internet was shut off in a sort of digital curfew for those students, and the court found that this violated their right to education because the autonomy of students to choose their own mode of education and openly seek information depended on this internet access. And I do also want to raise attention to the much broader reverberations of internet shutdowns on access to information and opportunities. The High Commissioner for Human Rights office just released a report looking into these economic, social, and cultural impacts of internet shutdowns. And it found that the adverse impacts on educational opportunities of refugees in Bangladesh and Myanmar, for example, not only occurred during the shutdown, but it far exceeded it and reverberated after this disruption. The report came to the conclusion that internet shutdowns undermine, quote, undermine pedagogical outcomes and interfere with education planning and communication among teachers, school administrators, and families. This backs the findings of Special Rapporteur Kumbo Bolibari on digital citizenship being something that education fosters. And so that's where I want to leave it, is that the internet is of course key to reaching these sustainable development goals, and goal 4 among them, but also in building, the next generation of digital citizens and civic participation. And for these reasons and more, we feel more attention is needed to prevent the shutting down of internet during school exams, which is something, a really disproportionate tactic that's used ostensibly to stop cheating during exams in many countries. But also recognizing that even general disruptions and the lack of access can impact our short-term outcomes for students, but also reverberate throughout the next generation as we try to build better global citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I can only recommend also from my side that those who haven't had a look at this report you mentioned, the OHCHR report, related to internet shutdowns, please have a look at it. It's an extremely interesting one, and we are already working with the OHCHR on questions like that. Thanks a lot. I'm now coming to the second part of our event, namely to the youth panelists. I will first of all welcome 2 young journalists at Mdoto News in Kenya. One is 11 years old and the other one is 16 years old, Lynn Denise Uko, and the other one is called Brian King. They are both passionate about online safety for children, and I'm very happy to welcome you here with us. I would like to ask them about your experience and about positive lessons learned, and how you manage through their organization to overcome the difficulties of access to the internet, and also how you are taught digital literacy. And as a last point, how to protect yourselves in this digital world. You have the floor.
Yes, that is me, Lynn Denise Oko from Makini School, Kisumu in Kenya. So my experience before Mtoto News was that I used to interact with the internet just like normal children. I would play games on my parents' phone without much knowledge on how to go through the phone and computers. I would use the phone to take photos and listen to music, not having enough knowledge and access to the internet. So Mtoto News trained me on how to be a child journalist and how to become a child online safety champion. During the COVID pandemic, schools were closed and we were not able to go to school, so we had to do online classes. I personally was very good at accessing the internet because of the way Mtoto News trained me. I would help my fellow pupils who had challenges during the online classes. So I would help them, and those are one of the challenges that they would be facing. They would be facing challenges like low access to phones, computers, and the internet. And also, it is so unfortunate for some of them because all children have the right to education, and some of them lacked the right to education during the COVID pandemic. The child you should be safe online while using the phone. Like, for example, me, during the online classes, advertisements would pop up and I would manage them because of the way Mtoto News helped me learn how to manage the advertisements. So, quick question, is your child safe online? Your child should be using like child-friendly gadgets. And by saying that, I don't clearly mean that your child should be using those kid tablets. They can just be using normal phones, iPads, tablets, but then now the phone should be activated by the age restrictions on sites like YouTube, Play Store, and many more apps. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll give the floor to Brian now.
Thank you so much. Adeline has exhausted most of what we usually learn at the Sauti Zetu training. That is the Mtoto News training we get on digital literacy, journalism, and media handling as well. So I guess I'd like to expand more on how to be safe online as a child, the kind of measures, the kind of things we are taught here. So first of all, I'd love to emphasize on the fact that we are alerted that the virtual world is more like the physical world. If we go to dangerous places, we are more likely to get hurt. But if we stay in the safe places, we will remain safe. We were taught to use the SMART system. The SMART system is basically a simple use of acronym. S standing for rather stay safe online by not sharing your personal information. M meaning do not meet anyone you have only become friends with online. A meaning do not accept messages and friend requests from people you do not know. R meaning not everything is reliable that we find in the internet. There are a lot of liars out there. T meaning tell an adult you trust if anything happens online that you do not like. We also learn about methods of reporting, that is through our various social media platforms, that is WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We also learn of the 116 code. I don't know if it's applicable all over the world, but I know here in Kenya, we use 116 to report any case of child abuse. That is in case we come into contact with system or auxiliary the child sexual abuse material. We are taught on how to report this, that is through the app and even directly via telephone, that is through the code 116. We are also taught on giving our parents enough access of our devices, enough access for them to ensure that we're safe, and enough access to ensure that we feel like we have our privacy respected. We know the kind of sites we're not supposed to visit. We know, like, for example, we're not supposed to click on links that do not end with a S, that is HTTPS. Because we know those sites are not secure. In short, the Sauti Zetu training is quite comprehensive. I think it's a basic it's a basic kind of education that a child would need to enter into the online world and actually be safe through this. I'd also love to point out that I agree with the special rapporteur that states should have laws that work in the best interest of the child to protect us when we're online. I know right here in Kenya, we have recently passed laws that are supposed to protect us, but they are not enough. We find that children are more exposed than adults actually. They are more vulnerable to attacks by malicious adults. We are more vulnerable to have our identities stolen online, even our basic, like I know in cases of fraud, children can be asked to give details and then fraud can happen where finances from their parents is stolen. So yeah, I guess this was my interaction with the Sauti Zetu children training, and personally, I guess I'm pretty excited to have been with Lynn and many other children here in Kenya to participated in the Sauti Zetu training. So yeah, maybe if anyone has a question about the Sauti Zetu training, I'm here.
Right, thank you very much. And many thanks to Lynn, to both of you. Very interesting what we heard. I must say there was at least one point in your statement which I didn't know personally, when you refer to these different sites, which you should not click on because they're simply not safe. Voila, so you can learn everything every day. And that is also part of our event today. So many thanks. I will now welcome the 17 years old Donna Coleman, who is a leading member of the Microsoft Council for the Digital Good Europe. You are connected to us from Dublin, if I understand well. And I would have two questions to you first. Tell us a bit more about the Council for Digital Good. What did you learn from it, and why was it useful for you? And second, what do you think are the best ways for young people to learn about the digital world and to help prepare them to handle risks in this environment?
Hi, so can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yes, we
Oh,
can hear you.
So I'll turn on my camera too. So the Council for Digital Good is basically, I'm part of the Council for Digital Good Europe because I'm from Ireland. So it's 15 teams from across Europe, and we get together once a month and we discuss digital issues with Microsoft. So basically the Council for Digital Good is the bridge between teenagers and companies like Microsoft. So we educate each other. So Microsoft teaches us teenagers about digital safety and how we can be digital citizens, and how to be upstanders and not bystanders against cyberbullying and stuff like sextortion and really any online issues. So in the council, we describe ourselves as digital ambassadors. So that's people who go out and inspire change in our communities and school to share knowledge gained through the council, basically. So every month we'll get together and we'll talk about separate issues. So say, I remember last year, like Halloween, we do a meeting every month. We were talking about sextortion, sexploitation. We did a 40-minute documentary on that, me and 3 others. So I think over Safer Internet Day, we started having these projects, and we were coming up with ideas for things to do for Safer Internet Day in our local communities. So I chose to do my school. So I went to my principal and we discussed things we could do. So we eventually came up with the conclusion to bring in a speaker to talk to parents and children about cyberbullying and sextortion, just to raise awareness about it, because really the only way we're going to tackle these issues is to raise awareness about them. And as teenagers, we talked to Microsoft about our experiences online, because we've grown up on the internet, so we know practically it in and out, and we have a really interesting perspective for them, so we can help other teenagers. So I joined the council in summer 2021 when I was 16, and I'd spent practically the whole year on screens because of COVID. And I was lucky to be able to continue my education because of like Zoom and everything online. And I could still contact my friends because obviously the internet was just great at the time. So, but at this time, I did see a lot of stuff that I think we can all agree that we saw stuff that we didn't really want to see, whether that was just bad content being shared around or misinformation being shared. It was a rough patch for everyone. But basically, sorry. So when I saw the council join, I saw it last summer before I joined. My mom showed me a post for their Facebook, and I decided this is a great idea because I'm really passionate about making the internet a safer place, because I just hated seeing all those things. I felt so hopeless, and I felt like I couldn't do anything to stop it without like fighting back. But I didn't want to fight directly back, because then I don't want to become as bad as those people. Because I have a younger sister, and when I was growing up, I had a rough time on the internet. Like I was very naive. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I saw a lot of horrible things, like terrible videos. So I wanted a better place for her and for my younger cousins, and just for every child growing up. If the internet is going to be as big as it is in 20 years or even bigger, I want it to be at least a safer place. So I struggle with anxiety. So a lot of that is based off stuff I saw when I was younger. And I hate the fact that is something that I still have to be worried about. I still think about at nighttime because of just horrible things I saw on the internet, because there was hardly any moderation, and it's just such an open space. I didn't have any education from my teachers or from my parents, because they didn't know what was happening, because it was such a new thing. So I think for education wise, I think it's the best solution is kind of the obvious solution. So that is adding in facilities in school for children to learn. But I think it's important for these children to learn through teenagers' past experiences. So I feel like a lot of teenagers grew up on the internet, and they obviously had no one to tell them what to do. So there's no experience going around. But if we, as like say the Council for Digital Good, or if we had multiple different councils from different companies spreading this information with schools and kind of different stakeholders, I feel like we could spread our experiences online into like the next generation and the generation after that to make sure everyone has a safe space online. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Very interesting statement. With that, I will now open the Q&A session. And there is one comment by the Greek permanent representative here to the UN in New York. Ambassador Theophili, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Christina, and welcome to New York. It's with great pleasure that I am meeting you. It is also with delight that I have again the opportunity to interact today with the special rapporteur after yesterday's fruitful third committee interaction. Dear colleagues and friends, in an increasingly unpredictable world, there are few certainties, one of them being the value of education. The successes of the Transforming Education Summit held here at the UN just a few days ago was the first tangible implementation of our common agenda, elevating education to the top of the global political agenda by mobilizing action, ambition, solidarity, and solutions to recover pandemic-related learning losses and working towards sowing the seeds to transform education. Greece participated very actively in all relevant discussions under the two-fold capacity as a co-lead of Action Track 4 on digital learning and transformation, along with Singapore, and also as a member of the advisory committee representing WEOG. I would like to share with you very briefly concrete steps that the Greek Ministry of Education has already taken for the gradual digital transformation of education in Greece. The ministry has introduced a strategy to increase digital literacy, adapt our education and training systems to a digital age, and harness the potential of digital technology to equip each and every student with the basic and advanced digital skills that are necessary. Moreover, we have introduced a large-scale teacher training program on the use of digital technology and tools and on introducing educators to novel teaching methods. After all, teachers are the key for the successful implementation of any action plan on education. Allow me now to raise a question to the panelists on how the UN could work better on forging partnerships for equitable education. What should we do to execute better SDGs 17 so that we achieve faster SDG 4? Thank you very much.
Excellent. Many thanks to the ambassador and permanent representative of Greece to the UN in New York. We are now in the Q&A session. Do we have some questions either from the room or virtually? Yes. If not, I would have a question. Okay, so then I'll pose one. I cannot read the chat, huh? So in case there is a question, apologies. I couldn't read it. One question would be that very often people talk about the importance to connect schools to the internet. So this is something we've heard, of course, very important. But I wonder whether there are some other spaces that should be connected to the internet for education purposes. That would be one question. And the second one would be, what are the wider issues that we need to use to adjust regarding efforts to increase connectivity, digital connectivity? Yeah. Maybe, Special Rapporteur, would you like to have the floor first? Yeah. Yeah, you want. Okay. Yes.
And now it's on. Okay, thank you. So yeah, very quickly, I think some of the concerns that we have is while we're focusing on education, education is not limited to just the schools. And so I think for looking and speaking to students, and of course, education at all levels we're talking about, in addition to just the schools themselves, I think libraries and community spaces. So a lot of places, children may not go to school or it may be too far away or whatever. But if there's community centers and if they're public libraries, which some libraries do a great job, but it's not always the case. It's also a quiet space where they can go, and then also to negotiate with the schools as to whether the school would stay open. So after classes, children can be there, and then that would have to be a safe space, especially for children. And I think, you can think about being more innovative. I saw this small thing from India where they actually, I think it was a bank, but somebody decided to put a computer on the outside of the building. So the mechanical part was inside, and these were children from the ghetto. They had no idea, but the children were so fast to pick up what to do. But I'm saying there can be other ways of getting children to understand, but absolutely, our young speakers are brilliant in terms of the safety issues and in terms of everything we need to look at. I think one other thing, perhaps too, since I have, in terms of support and international connectivity and collaboration, I think apart from the connectivity, and I think our speaker from Sierra Leone also spoke about power, because if you don't have electricity, it's going to have an impact. But the second thing I think is transfer of technology. So can we think of how the technology, so it's not just software going from one place to another and being used, but actually you do have technology being transferred, so you can have cheaper devices, you can have your own software and things. So I think we just need to be careful about that. Last thing, assessment, sorry. Just one last thing, which is my question to everybody, which is how do you assess the quality of learning, not the quality of, we talk about the quality of education. What about the quality of learning when it's digital? Because I am getting a lot of complaints by teachers that the students, when it's digital, do not absorb in the same way, do not comprehend. So it's just to make sure that we have some assessment of as we move forward. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, who would like to comment from those connected virtually to the question? If Peter, would you like to add something or?
Thank you. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the broader question of what locations to connect, I think the special rapporteur hit that well, that the 2.7 billion who remain offline aren't necessarily going to be visiting schoolhouses, that have electricity and hookups, and there is a lot more innovation that's necessary. And a lot of this can take the form of community networks. You can have different electricity solutions, including solar and other alternative technologies to maintain the power to these systems, and then use different forms of Wi-Fi and mesh networking in order to connect either to satellite or to the local grids. And it is important, and the ITU has a role to play, as well as development donors, and even national regulators who can tweak their spectrum allocations and regulations in order to foster these new and innovative, and smaller and local scale uses of spectrum in order to connect us all. I also did want to raise actually where the special rapporteur started, which was raising some of the privacy concerns around the introduction of technology into schools. I think that solving that problem of how to teach students best, and on using digital versus analog tools is something that the education profession is best placed to do. But we do generally want to caution around the public-private partnerships that that a lot of schools come to depend on, and that a lot of administrators have really rushed to implement, during and after COVID-19, when schools were obviously forced online. It's this kind of acceleration without proper attention to the due diligence and the procurement and the contracts in place with a lot of these private providers that's necessary now, I think, to get more scrutiny. We've had concerning examples in Europe involving the use of facial recognition in schools in order to mark attendance. That's really a place where the tech companies might even offer the technologies for free, or kind of in combination, with grants of free devices or discounted services. But in our view, we really need to be careful to prevent exploitation of students and of schools by tech companies trying to test out their beta test their products and services, or even worse, collect really sensitive data. And so data protection Europe authorities in Europe have spoken up against these practices. And then one last point is I'm based in New York City, and there, one of these third parties, these education tech providers, was actually hacked, and the intruder gained access to student names, birth dates, and data on such sensitive characteristics as special education students, English as a second language learners, and those receiving free or reduced priced meals. And so, we really think it's incumbent, not necessarily just on schools, but on data protection authorities and regulators to take a hard look at these education tech providers to ensure that best practices on cybersecurity and data protection are met. And then, for the administrators who are trying to navigate all these programs, to be wary, and look out for the best interests of their students and their students' privacy when engaging with these providers. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I had one short question in the room, and then I will need to close.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. And indeed, good morning, colleagues. I'm Lily Gray with UNESCO New York office. Actually, it's more a comment, and it was mostly inspired by Her Excellency's Ambassador Teofili intervention. So if you please allow me, we are just coming out of Transforming Education Summit, where we analyzed the national commitments of member states. We know that more than 130 member states committed to advance and transform education, including by tapping on the transformation of digital learning. And again, thank you very much to Greece and Singapore that led this very exciting conversation on the thematic action track on digital learning. So just briefly to share that 1 out of 2 in these national commitments states as a priority to ensure universal connectivity, universal broadband. 1 out of 3 prioritizes open free curricula aligned with digital resources, and 1 out of 4 is putting the focus on digital skills and competencies. And just to complement again and stress how UNESCO looks and contributes to that discussion, and what already my colleague Borjan Ciclun brilliantly mentioned, certainly in the conversation we have had leading to the Transforming Education Summit, getting lots of partners across the board on that discussion. We are in elaborating and agreeing on the Rewire Declaration on Connectivity and Education. It's a very central reference document. So three principles. The first one again is put the focus on the most marginalized. Let's not forget that we are tapping on the digital learning opportunities just to be able to ensure the right to quality education to everyone, especially those that are more far, those that are left behind. Second, certainly expand in the high quality digital education content. So certainly connectivity is very important, but free high quality education content. And third, we all heard that the digital learning means moving educational spaces maybe outside of the physical classroom. However, certainly this requires innovative pedagogical approaches, and teachers' preparedness is central. I just wanted to add these comments, and thank you. I was definitely inspired by Her Excellency, and thank you all and European Union for your interesting conversation. Thank you.
Many thanks to the representative of UNESCO here in New York for your comment. Many thanks to all speakers, to those who contributed with statements, with also with questions, those that were here in the room with us. I will close basically with two remarks. First, what we saw is that when we talk about education and digital, I think we are faced with a double challenge. The first one is to ensure connectivity. I think that was very clear, to try to have as many people as possible have access to the internet, to digital tools, etc. But the second point is, and this is a number one priority for the European Union, is to ensure a human rights-based approach to digital, to new and emerging technologies. And this is basically also what we heard. And I think we were privileged to have so many young people also talking to us, not just, the representatives of different organizations, etc. But what we heard from the young people was that there is a risk that your rights are being violated. There is a risk simply because you do not know what this open space, the internet, bears in sort of when it comes to the challenges. And in that, of course, ensuring a human rights-based approach has, of course, an important point also when it comes to the gender divide. I just like to reiterate that, and of course, a social divide as well. So I think this is where we are. Very good also that the ITU, the future Deputy Secretary General elect, so the future Deputy Secretary General was connected. I think we saw that this needs to be a common endeavor throughout the whole UN system, both I mentioned UNESCO, ITU, and then of course also a big role to the independent special rapporteur on education, whom I wish all the best, and I hope we can continue our discussion then also in Brussels. Many thanks for everybody for having attended, and I wish you a nice and successful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you from Sierra Leone.